All right. Welcome back to another episode of Adventures in Adversity. We have an amazing guest here today. I am very grateful to have not only a former police officer, retired police officer, who I have a ton of respect for, but also the father of my former student who is now my podcast editor. So lots of super cool connections today. Before I start yapping, I just wanted to thank you, Manny, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I was pleasantly surprised when Julian said that you were going to reach out. In fact, I asked him, I said, hey, she hasn't reached out. What's going on?
You know, Julian's keeping me busy with all the demands that he has now that I've hired him to help edit. He's like, listen, I need those thumbnails. And I'm like, listen,
Yeah.
you need to chill out. No,
The roles have reversed.
I know. I'm like, he's literally teaching me about how to actually be a analytics focused, mission focused podcaster with a plan. So
Right.
great job on your end raising an awesome son. We'll get to that. But yeah, I wanted to thank you. And if you're new to the podcast, thank you for being here. If you've been listening for a while, you kind of know the deal. But essentially, this podcast, we are coming up on almost 2 years, and I am blessed to have had many guests who have been open to sharing their stories about adversity. So the tagline of the podcast is real people, true stories, daily inspiration. And really my goal is that anyone listening, whatever walk of life you are in and whatever phase of life, that you realize you're not alone, and you hopefully leave this with a few coping strategies or just the feeling that, we're all human and we all experience adversity. So, with that, I wanted to welcome you again, Manny. And our connection goes back to Julian, former student of mine when I was a teacher 20 years ago in Phoenix, Arizona. And speaking of Phoenix, you live in Phoenix and have a long history in Phoenix.
Yeah. I grew up here, so I'm native, and I grew up in Maryville. So anybody that's from Phoenix or Arizona knows where Maryville's at.
Okay.
So it's just out. It's in Phoenix, but it's on the west side of Phoenix. So
Got it. So you're Arizona through and through.
100%.
Awesome. And you not only live in Arizona, but you we were a police officer in Maricopa County, correct?
No, I was in Mesa.
Mesa.
I
Okay.
started my career with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so take me through, I think what we're going to talk about over the course of the next hour or so is your career as a retired police officer, but really kind of looking at the whole journey you've been through from police academy to becoming a new police officer to on the job adversity to then transitioning out of serving your community and life after retirement into your nonprofit, which we're going to talk about as well, P.I.S.T.L.E,
Right.
where you help serve police officers who are experiencing PTSD and who might be struggling to cope. So, wanted to just start off. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Was becoming a police officer something that was in your family? How did that all begin?
Honestly, well, I dropped out of high school, so
Okay.
I wasn't probably the best kid that you would think would become a police officer,
Okay.
and I didn't like the cops growing up. Like I didn't want to be around them. In fact, we ran from them back in Maryville. So it wasn't that I bucked authority. I understood that there was a respect factor there. But to me, they just bothered me. You know what I mean? Like we would cruise Central. My brother had a lowrider, and we'd get pulled over all the time and whatnot. So they were just a bother to me.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I played baseball a lot, and I was fairly good at it. And I didn't really have any other options. If I didn't make if I couldn't make a living out of that, I had to find something. And when I dropped out, a friend of mine had said, "Hey, you know, you can get into law enforcement. You just need a GED or a high school diploma." And I thought, nah, you know, I don't want to. I just don't want to fuck with people the way that I got fucked with, or I felt that I got
Yeah.
messed with. And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going to like a career day in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a school here. It's still around, but it's shifted a little bit. But back then it was called Metro Tech, and they had a law enforcement program. And I went. They had a 1-2 program and then an advanced 3-4 program, and I went through that, and I realized, oh shit, I had it wrong. You know, they not all cops are assholes, and they're not just picking on people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through that 1-2 class first, totally different. That's where adversity really started to set in, when I knew something was going to be different, right? So when I showed up to class the first day, I was late,
Mm-hmm.
and they screamed at me, and I had to do push-ups, and I'm thinking to myself, like, in no high school class did this ever take place, but I did it. And I did it because I was like, who puts themselves in this position? I could just go to class late, barely pass or whatever, but I was kind of intrigued. And so I went through 1-2, did really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I dropped out of school, missed a year, came back for 3-4 law enforcement. And then
Okay.
that's where I met my future wife, and my son's mom was in that class. Um, and then once I figured out, hey, I could do this job, and I was relatively good at understanding, plus where I grew up,
Uh-huh.
I thought, and it's going to sound cliche, but I was like, you know, I could probably help these young kids. And they may or may not listen to me, but I'm not like the cops that I remember seeing. Uh, so I just dove headfirst into law enforcement, um, right after, uh, it was like a few years. Julian was probably like maybe 3 when I really focused on moving forward with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have 3 kids, correct?
Two
Two.
boys.
2 boys. Why did I think there was another kid in there? I don't know. Um, uh, now so at what age were you when you were in this law enforcement program? How old were you?
So when I first went through, I was 16 going into 17.
Wow. Okay. So you were quite young.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, when I went through the 1-2 class, I I was a screw up. You know what I mean? All I wanted
Yeah.
to do was play grab ass with the girls and play baseball. I didn't go to
Yeah.
class. I didn't go to class
Sure.
at all. In
Sure.
fact, to give you an example, by the time I should have been a senior, and my class that I should have graduated with, I only had a half credit. That's how bad I was in school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look back on that time, um, kind of with the hindsight you have now and having raised kids and having, which we're going to get to your police career, is there anything that you would say to your younger self if anyone is listening to this and maybe they're in that phase, they have a kid in that phase or their siblings in that phase where they're just like a little bit lost around that age?
Well, you know, back then it wasn't like now. I mean, now you can do whatever you want. Plus,
True.
teachers are
True.
teachers are a lot different now.
Mm,
Um,
very true.
the teachers I had back then, everything was very, very neat and precise, and the lesson plans were very straightforward, and you either passed or you didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and so now I see teachers teaching in a whole different way. I don't agree with some of the syllabuses that they have and the way they teach,
Hmm.
but there's more personable skills that students get with teachers. I
Yeah.
didn't get that. When
Yeah.
I walked in, the teacher said, "Take out your math book. We're doing chapters 1 to 3. Your homework is this, this, and this, and it's expected on this day." And I mean, it wasn't that they didn't offer help, but you either understood it the way they taught it or you
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's now it's so much more. I feel like just having taught, the key is like connecting with your student, right? And
Right.
hopefully influencing them in a positive way beyond what they're memorizing in your class, you know?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you're like realizing, okay, based on how I grew up and my knowledge of like the community and I think I can really do this. What adversity hits when you're kind of in the academy, when you're ramping up? What comes to mind? That wasn't just smooth sailing becoming a police officer. Would you, in your experience, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, if you were book smart, you wouldn't have any issues. But the adversity began when I found out that my wife was pregnant of Julian. So
Mhm.
now I had a fire under my ass, and I had to go get a job. I had to have insurance. I had to have all these things
Yeah.
because now not only did I have my girlfriend, but I had a baby on board. And then I was kind of thrust into this world of, shit or get off the pot. And, I had, at that point, I had two choices. I could have joined the military, or I could have just worked really hard digging ditches. Cause remember, I dropped out of high school. So it wasn't like I had an education to fall back on.
Mm.
Um, and so I did some odd and end jobs until I was able to apply for the sheriff's office as a detention officer. Then I went through an 8-week academy. And right at this point is where coping and, uh, I guess, like determination come into play. Adversity sets in really hard because in that academy, just like the police academy, if you fail 3 tests, you're fired. You're out. So I don't know any other job like that, right? Like
Oh,
in the detention academy and the police academy, the detention academy is 8 weeks long. The police academy is 16 weeks long.
okay.
And they tell you fail 3 classes, you're out. If they catch you lying, you're out. In one of my classes in detention, we weren't supposed to leave the academy grounds, even though we didn't live there. From 8 to 5, that was our workspace.
Mhm.
And one of the guys during lunch, he wanted to run home and he had forgotten something that day. And he didn't ask anybody. He just left. He's on his lunch hour. And one of the instructors comes up to us and we're so and so. And we're like, he went to his house to get his uniform or whatever. And they were like, okay, no problem. So they came back and they asked him, like, where'd you go? And he's like, I just went to the restroom. And they said, okay, no problem. And then they pulled him out of class and they fired him on the spot. So I don't know any job like that. Like, I don't
No.
know any job that does that. So immediately we learn very quickly integrity matters
Mhm.
the most. And
Mhm.
you had to focus. Um, like I said, I had a kid. I couldn't afford to lie and lose the job, but then I was still battling passing and I wasn't the best student.
Mhm. Because you're learning all these new concepts, situations, but it's probably at a very rapid pace. It sounds like 16 weeks. Well, the 9 weeks versus, I mean,
Yeah,
it,
the 8 weeks there, it's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
because it's policies, procedures, uh, in the detention academy, it's some laws that pertain to the jails, but you're studying I mean, my day started at 4:30 in the morning and it ended at 9 at night. And that was every day for 7 days a week.
Yeah. Do you recall, two-part question, class that class that you really enjoyed, found valuable at police academy, and a class or a part of it that you found extremely challenging? Do you remember?
Well, for me, the challenging part was the studying. So after I graduated and became a detention officer, I left that to join the police academy.
Mhm.
So so there's more adversity there, and we talked about this offline before we started,
Yeah.
but these stages of adversity that a civilian has in their normal life, like, go to school, graduate, get a job, rise the corporate ladder, those are all adversity.
Yep.
And everybody's going to go through that. some careers have more adversity than others,
Yep.
and you cope with things differently. So I had a secure job in the sheriff's office. I had already passed the academy. I could have stayed there 20 years and retired, but I wanted to make it difficult and become a police officer and give myself more fucking adversity. And so I went to the academy, and again, this is 16 weeks of doing that. So to answer your question, for me, the hardest part was the educational piece,
That
because I
big.
was never into school.
Yeah.
And it is 100% college course, high pressure, studying. That didn't count the shooting. That didn't count all the other stuff. Being on time, making sure that you followed. You had to. I mean, there was so much that we had to do.
Yeah.
And then once we got into class, so like the morning of the academy, every morning we had PT. So we had to run. We had to do push-ups. We had to do all this stuff. Then we only had like 4 or 5 minutes to shower, change, get in the classroom, and then study for the next 6 hours, 7 hours. And you're cramming all this legal stuff, learning the laws. You can't memorize that many laws. Legal concepts. You're learning case law. You're going through all of that.
Wow.
Then when you get home, you have flashcards to study because you got to learn 100 blocks of the city that you're going to be patrolling. Then you've got to learn, arrest procedures, internal policies, external laws, case law. Then you're working on radio discipline, your gun, your shooting, defensive tactics. This is all 16 weeks.
That's a lot. And that's it that sounds extremely challenging to me. And my first question that came up was, do you think the sort of the rhythm and the pace and the discipline of that was a preview of what your life would be like as a police officer, sort of the discipline of that?
The academy was the easy part.
Right, because the
So
controlled
yeah,
environment.
it's
Yeah.
controlled, and you can study. My wife, by that time she was my wife. She
Mhm.
had flashcards. Um, we studied 100 blocks, radio codes, um, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
you really have that adversity is, even though they're there to help you, they can't do it for you.
Mhm.
So you're you have to overcome it. And they didn't make it easy, which
No.
they did, and I do get in trouble sometimes, but they have lowered their standards in most agencies to make it a little bit easier, because I think we've raised a softer generation that are a little bit used to that whole everyone gets a trophy.
Uh-huh.
And again, I'm not complaining or saying one is better than the other, but the same way that I had what I was telling you about in grammar school and grade school and high school is exactly what they did to me in the academy. Like there was no, oh, take some time, go over here and study. You had to learn how to deal with adversity,
Mhm.
period.
Mhm.
And you either wanted to do it or you didn't. Now some academies, they give you rest time, they give you quiet time, which
Mhm.
I'm not against completely, but you're not really setting somebody up to push through barriers, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. Now, did your wife become a police officer as well, or did she go into a different area
Oh yeah, no,
of
no,
law?
no. She's got the hardest job. She's her job. I've always said, as a stay at home mom and housewife is, I'd rather get shot at. I'd rather get shot at, and I have been shot at. So I can still tell you that is the hardest job ever.
100%. 100%. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I'm a working mom that works from home in cafes, so I don't know. I kind of, but like, I have a whole support system. So, but I truly agree. It's such an important and challenging job, like raising the
Yeah,
next
that I
generation.
I mean, in all honesty, I think in any situation for a mom, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a working mom, whether it doesn't matter. Moms are, I cannot tell you, I've been shot at, I've been cut out of cars, and I still have the utmost respect for moms.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
But
You want to talk about adversity, that's
but I
big
gotta
time.
say, I think you've been being shot at and cut out a car. That's pretty legit. Which we're gonna get to. I want to hear how you have gotten through some of these challenging moments. So you're in the police academy. Oh, you okay? Take
Yeah.
a sec. Yeah, take a sec. No rush.
Go ahead.
Yeah, take your time.
Allergies.
Oh, totally, totally. Uh, so so we're at the beginning phase where you're pushing through. You complete the police academy, the 16-week program, and after that, are you in your career? Take me through what's next. Do they kind of did you get a soft landing, or were you kind of just sink or swim for your first
No,
part?
I mean, so after 16 weeks of the academy, you've got another 8. Oh, I said 16. I think it's 18.
Okay.
Now my 52-year-old brain's free. It's 16 or 18, but
Okay.
you've got another 16 weeks of field training. So you get a field training officer, and then now you're going to apply everything that you learned in the previous 16 weeks to the next 16 weeks.
Okay.
And that's a whole, so going back just a second, just when you think you accomplished something by graduating the academy, now you've got to apply all of that in real time. So now it's kind of like you want to be an actor, but you've never done a show, and then you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Now you've
totally.
got to go out and try to apply what you just learned. And
Yep.
so to give you an example, I graduated the academy on a Friday. And some people, they actually started the next day because that's the shift and the squad that they got. I was fortunate enough, or not, that I started, like, I want to say I think I started Monday on a swing shift, like at 2 p.m. So I had 2 days
Couple
off
days.
to be proud of myself that I graduated the academy. So I show up on my first day, and when my first day I show up, you meet your FTO, and he gets everything ready. He tells you, this is the car, this is our call sign. So amongst everything else that I just was high about, being happy and graduating, now immediately they're like, hey, this is your call sign. You have to remember your call sign, right? So I wrote it on my palm, and you're already nervous, so that went away fucking fast because I was sweating my ass off.
What was your call sign?
My very first call sign
Any
was,
call sign? Like, give me an example of a call sign.
so my call sign, I think my first call sign, so it's 2 and then a C, but we called it a Charlie, obviously,
Uh-huh.
and then 18. So my first call sign was 2 Charlie 18.
So that if they call you on the radio, that's you.
Yeah,
Got
right.
it.
So
Okay,
now,
rookie here. Yeah.
right. So now think you've got
Gosh.
you're in a so you're the first week you don't drive, you just sit shotgun, but you're listening to the radio while your FTO is trying to talk to you, and you're trying to listen for this call sign. So we load up the car. I get introduced to the squad. He walks me around the station, and then we jump in the car and we leave the station, and we're about a minute out from leaving the station, and there's hot tones, right? They beep. It goes
Okay.
boop to let you know this is an important call. All the other calls just get dispatched normal,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So, and most of your viewers will probably know, if they've watched like police or fire calls, they know that tone.
Sure. Yes.
That tone is to tell if you hear that tone, bad stuff is happening.
Got it.
So I hear the radio chattering, and I'm thinking to myself, I got to remember my call sign, but I'm trying to remember my FTO, what he's telling me. I hope I have my policy books. Is my gun loaded? All the normal shit that you're trying to remember. And then as we're, like I said, we're probably no more than a minute to 2 minutes out. And then I hear a tone, boop. And I
Your
remember,
first time out.
yeah, we had just left the station. And I
Wow.
remember thinking to myself, please don't call my call sign, right? And the first thing they do is call my call sign. And that means we're primary to this call.
So you and your full-time officer.
Right. Now my field training officer, he's
Field
driving.
training. Field training. Okay,
And
got it.
the call comes out, and the call is a subject threatening with the chain, and it's in our area. So the first call out of the gate is a subject threatening with the chain. So we run lights and sirens. So my very first call, we're doing like 70 on the freeway to get to where this call's at.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, this can't be real, right? Like, there's a guy with a chain, and we turn the corner on the street that this guy's supposedly at, and there's a guy on the ground, and there's a guy standing over him swinging a metal chain, like trying to hit him, like getting ready to hit him. So in that time, in 2 days, I went from being a student in the academy to now potentially staring at, shooting somebody or in this violent encounter. And so it was that fast. Like, that was just my experience. It doesn't always happen that way, but that was it. Like, that was my first call out of the box.
Yeah.
And I remember we ended up arresting that guy.
Uh-huh.
He had to go to the hospital because he wanted to fight with us. So we kind of fought with him for a minute. And then I went with them to the hospital, and he's secured. And I remember once he was secured, I called my wife, and I'm like, hey, so we just arrested a guy that was swinging a chain. Now, she was already nervous to begin with, but she was up. But
Of course.
yeah.
So do you, in that situation, and I'm sure you learn over time how to, or again, assumption that you learn coping strategies to calm your nervous system. But for anyone early in their police officer career listening or considering becoming a police officer, on that first call, do you remember, like, does adrenaline kick in always? Pretty, or
For
is it just,
me, I didn't have time. Like,
yeah.
I think I was so overwhelmed with training.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember thinking, okay, if this guy has a gun, we're gonna go to guns. We got to take control of the scene. Like, all
Trying to,
that stuff was, yeah. I didn't
yeah.
have time. I didn't have time to get scared or be nervous or worry. It just kicked in naturally.
You
Which,
go, yeah.
yeah, which will, when we get towards Pistol and my nonprofit, you'll see
Yeah.
how that is not a good thing.
Yes. So you find yourself, you have that first call. Take me through maybe what you would describe, because I know there's more phases in a police officer's, every police officer's career is different, but we're going to walk through the different phases of your career and the different areas of adversity that you faced and how you've overcome that. How long would you say that initial, it was your 20-year career, that initial phase in the beginning is, where you're, in your experience, you're learning the ropes and seeing, kind of learning the world that you had just entered into?
So I thought I had beat adversity when I became a detention officer, because I figured I went through the academy. How bad can the police academy be?
Uh-huh.
And then once I went through the police academy, that's when I started to realize, like, this isn't a joke. Like, this isn't a normal job where your life is ever going to be the same. People either like you or they don't like you. And personally, initially you start to think they don't like me, like Manny. They don't like Manny, right? Or they don't like. I think you go by Bree, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it you learn very quickly that has nothing to do with Manny or Bree. They don't like the uniform, right? And
Yeah.
so early on, what I used to not like about the cops, I just I forgot that they were people. I was running from, you know, the uniform. So I had to, and this will come on later on when I get into my detective work, but
Hmm.
I had to get into a place where I couldn't take it personal, right? Because they don't know me. They've never met me. They don't know my background. They just know what I stand for.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I learned very early on. Like I had to understand that even though they spit at me or on me or threw or shot at me, they weren't shooting at Manny. It was what I
Yes.
represented that they didn't like.
So it's that's a part of the job I feel like needs to be discussed as somebody who I have the utmost respect for our veterans, our first responders. That's how I was raised, is just like those are the people that you um, always have respect for. And do you think that that's talked about enough? Like the or is that I guess the police officers don't get the respect that they deserve. And I know this is a hot topic, but I'm not afraid of bringing it up that uh, I think there's a massive underappreciation for police officers. And it's something that I don't really think is acceptable. You know what I mean? Like it really bothers me. Um, give me your perspective based on the fact that you kind of brought that up, that so you faced that kind of treatment early on as a police officer. Was that just constant?
Well, yeah, but I think I think sometimes people don't realize they're doing it, right? Like um I had friends that stopped talking to me because I became a police officer. Um
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
there's our job is kind of unique. Like I remember one time I had a friend of mine, and this might have been pride. He might have been very proud of me, but every time we went somewhere, he would introduce me by my career, and he'd be like, "Hey, this is Manny. He's my buddy's police officer." Like
Yeah.
everywhere. And so one day, well, I asked him. I said, "Hey, you don't have to do that, bro." And he was like, "No, no, no, I won't, I won't." And then he would do it again. So one day he came to a party and I introduced him, and I was like, "Hey, it's my friend. He's a plumber." Right. And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Exactly. That's what you're doing to me. Like you're putting me." And later on, I'm sure there's they're very proud that they know you. Just
Yeah.
like I would be proud, like Julian's proud that's my teacher. You're proud
Totally.
like
Like you
that's my
just
student, right? And I do hear the correlation. Like especially when Julian was on and you were talking, you're like, "Oh, that's my student," right? Um, so I get it, but it was odd to me because I'm
yeah.
like, I don't know why are you introducing me by my career?
That's one
And
dimension. That's a
right.
dimension of who you
And
are.
I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but it's probably just he was just very proud.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was, I mean, I'm not a plumber. Julie and I before the podcast were trying to put together a toilet. I don't
Dude,
like it, so I got
it's such an essential service. Plumbers
right
are amazing.
exactly. And I wish I had one before we were doing that,
Yeah.
but again, that's not something we do. But getting through that part of it was another. That was something else that had to do with adversity. I had to learn how to deal with that. I had to learn to accept their prideful,
Yep.
and they're being proud of me. Mostly, um, I can see where people would get kind of a big head, like because they're introduced that way, but I'm just not comfortable with that. Because remember, I didn't want to be a police officer to begin with. So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I was proud or
Mm-hmm.
wasn't proud that I earned it, But when I was off duty, I really just wanted to be off duty.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're asking, as far as respect,
Mm-hmm.
back then in the late 90s, there was far more respect for law enforcement and first responders than there is now.
Yeah.
Far more, far more. I mean, even within the criminal elements, that I work some high profile cases and some pretty violent offenders, and even they had an unspoken rule, like, if you don't have to shoot at the cops, don't shoot at the cops, right? Like, you just didn't do that.
Right.
Just kind of like we had the same thing, like there was no extra kicks, like excessive force, like they gave up, and that was all said and done.
Yeah.
Unspoken rules, I guess.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it's just, and I said it on the episode with retired Sergeant Alfred Brenner, and I always want to give a shout out because I was raised that way, and I believe that, like you said, that the job of a police officer is unlike any other job. It's not a normal job. It's something that probably you'll never understand unless you walk in those shoes. We can try to understand, but so you're rolling through that beginning phases of your career. Take me through kind of what comes next in that journey. Did you feel like there was a point where your mental health started to be affected? Was it based on, is it just, I feel like becoming a police officer will cause stress, but when did you start? I know you've had experiences with PTSD and your foundation is based on, helping people with PTSD, specifically law enforcement. Um, was that something that you encountered early on? Uh,
No,
no.
not at all. Well, so after FTO, you go solo,
Okay.
right? So once you're solo, that's when you really, really start to realize that people depend on you who never know you. So
Mhm.
when you're solo, then you get your own assigned area of responsibility, right? A beat.
Okay.
And I don't know those people, right? If I'm patrolling your neighborhood, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're a good person, a bad person. I don't know anything about you. But
Mhm.
while you're living your life, those officers are patrolling to make sure that if you need help, they respond, no matter what. So once you get off FTO, then you're handed this beat. And now that's when you start thinking, okay, I'm responsible for this entire area. Now, I
Yeah.
work for a big city. So in one beat, there might be 3 or 4 officers assigned to that beat.
Okay.
But that's us responsible for so many thousand of people in that area, right?
Mhm.
So we'll just say it's a small beat, and maybe there's, I don't know, 6,000 people in that area.
Okay.
But I had Fiesta Mall in my beat. So now you've got the mall in there, you've got restaurants in there. You might have 10, 12,000 people in that area at any given time.
Wow.
But I don't know these people. And that's one thing that you start to really, it weighs on you, like, okay, I got to make sure all these people are safe, which isn't possible. But
Great.
when someone picks up the phone and calls 911, we don't ask if you're short, tall, fat, skinny, white, black, Hispanic, man, woman. We respond to what you're asking us to respond to, right? So you take on this, it's not a burden, I just don't know the word, but you take a responsibility. You take on the responsibility that if Bree calls the police at 2 a.m. because her husband's out of town and somebody's trying to break in, I have to get there to protect you, right? And I'm going there with that intention, and I'm going to stop whatever problem it is. Or maybe it's not that bad. Maybe um, you woke up and uh, you thought you heard a noise in the backyard, and you're not going to sleep comfortably until we check it.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%.
So you're already starting to get into that world of like, okay, I got to take care of these people, this community. That's 99% of like a police officer thinking. They're patrolling with that intention. Now, given the state of affairs we're in with violence and hostility over time, but that's ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Um, they're still there to protect the person that's calling. May not seem like that because remember, when I was growing up, I did not believe that they were coming to help me. I thought they're coming to fuck with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when I got pulled over, I'm like, they're coming to fuck with me, right? But I never gave it much thought that while I was sleeping, right, while you're sleeping, there's somebody out there waiting or patrolling to make sure that you sleep comfortably, right? You just don't know that because you don't give it much thought.
Right.
And I'd say that's a greater portion of society, and I mean globally, because everybody in the world has police officers
Mm-hmm.
and that's their job. So when you get your first beat, that's a whole nother realm of responsibility, and you're constantly like, okay, when I'm at work, I'm at work. And this is where I think you touched on it earlier about um like the hardships of being a cop.
Mm-hmm.
So I was at work so much. Well, not so much, but that job takes so much from you. Like I even asked Julian when he said that he was doing the podcast with you. I'm like, you have to tell me what teacher you're talking about because in this job,
Yeah.
we give more to the community than we do our families because as you probably know my wife or
Yeah.
remember my
Yeah.
wife better than you remember me
Yeah.
because she was the one that went there because I had to work, right? Parent teacher conference,
Yep.
right? If I was working swing shift and we worked the shitty hours. So we worked, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I even asked Julian, I'm like, you're going to have to show me a picture because there's
You're
certain
like,
teachers.
yeah. You're like, who the hell? No, I'm kidding. No, but what's interesting, you say that you gave more to the community, like than your own family. And when you're giving by patrolling, like how many families are impacted, it's actually quite incredible when you think just the fact that it just makes you think twice, about like the things you complain about. And that's why I'm a little bit like bullish about when I see police officers, first responders, like I, you know, people don't appreciate what we have. And
Right.
I always want to be an advocate for um just, you know, always showing love to our police officers. So take me through the next phase. So you're kind of learning, I mean, society's always changing, right? Like you're keeping up with, you've got kids, you're growing up, you're learning how to be a police officer, you're responsible for certain areas. Were there specific tools or coping mechanisms that helped you on the job um, to kind of handle the everyday stress? Because you never knew what was coming your way with a call. So how would you prep yourself for a typical day on the job in the early years of your career?
So that's the problem. And that's part of why uh, we founded our organization.
Mhm.
we got we got 2 hours of mental health training in the academy.
2
2
hours.
hours. So,
Wow.
and now you see the realm of the worst, and sometimes you see the best, but you don't, nobody ever called me no one ever called the non-emergency line or 911 to say, send the officer out so we can, say thank you. Or we had community action officers that would go out and do the public events. But
Mhm.
for the most part, the patrol officers, they're only responding because it's your worst day. Does that make sense? Like,
When you're getting a call, it's not good.
right.
Like, you're going
And
it's
like,
just not.
yeah, like some of the times I would get irritated when people would call for loud party calls on like a Sunday at like 6 in the evening. And I'm like, they're having a gathering. Like, it's only 6.
It's
So
ridiculous.
I was still I was impartial to the other people as well, right? Like, it's 6. They're hanging with their family. Like, that's a good thing,
Mhm.
right? Now, if it was 10 o'clock at night, now that's different. But like 5 in the evening, I'd show up and I would tell the people, hey, I mean, good percentage of the time we didn't know who called because it was anonymous. But I'd be like, somebody's complaining about your music. I don't care that your music is loud. Obviously, I don't live next to you, but I still felt a responsibility to let them know, like, hey, I'm not just driving around looking for loud parties, right? Like, I'm not. In
Yeah,
fact, I think you should have loud parties if you're having a good time and no one's getting hurt, right?
right.
That's a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
celebration.
Yeah,
So, um, I try to be as impartial as possible and let people live their lives
yeah,
without hurting people.
right. Because if you had to sum it up, what is the if an alien landed and had never heard of the word police officer, the concept, what is a police officer, and what is the main purpose? Protection of their citizens. Is there like a core mission statement?
In my opinion,
I guess officially and in your opinion.
I don't know about officially because I think every department has a different, they all
Okay.
have a mission statement, right?
Yep.
And it's all similar.
Uh-huh.
But I think for me, you know, I- m- if you were asking me when I got in my patrol car, I would just, I took pride in my beat and I wanted it to be as safe an area as possible. And I wanted the people to know like we would come fast if they needed us,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
I also kind of made sure that the nefarious shit didn't happen, right? Because just like anything else, I mean, I just would think to myself, like, I had, Julian was young then. And, obviously I'm at work. So that kind of left my wife like a single mom
Mhm.
because she's doing everything that a single mom would do while I was at work. She would have to go grocery shopping. She'd have to take him school shopping.
Yeah.
And I just kind of thought to myself, would I want my wife to witness a drug deal going on in front of them? Right. Or would I want my son to be a victim of a crime, or my mom or my dad or my aunt? So that's what I looked for, right?
Yeah.
I wanted the moms and the dads in my community to feel that they could do what they needed to do and not fear danger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's really what I when I was in patrol, that's what I thought my job was, or I
Yeah.
felt it was, right? And I mean, sometimes I would see a man or a woman jogging with headphones on,
Uh-huh.
and I would pull up beside them, and I'm like, take one out. Not because I thought bad things were going to happen, but they're not going to hear a car behind them, right?
You're trying to prevent things that you can prevent. You're
Right.
patrolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it must have felt really good when you helped people like that and really
I
you
don't know
know,
that I don't know that felt good. Sometimes I told myself like, don't do that. It's kind of bossy,
okay.
right? But I wasn't trying to be bossy. I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody. Like, I wouldn't want somebody out for a run to get hit from
Yeah.
behind because they didn't hear. You know what I mean?
Well, that's like
And
being a
maybe
good neighbor too.
right, like you would
Hey,
say, would you not say that to your husband?
totally.
Like,
Or you say, "Hey, you got a flat tire. Hey, your trunk's open." Like you
right,
get into a random stranger. "Hey, your gas tank thing is hanging out."
right.
Like,
Same concept. The only
yes.
difference the only difference was a good portion of the time those people thought that I was just trying to be an ass and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
When I really wasn't. I wasn't. I was just trying to be nice.
Right. Totally. All right, so you're in the those you've got to beat, you're patrolling on your own. Um and we talked about that we're going to touch on the different phases of adversity, and obviously throughout the career of a police officer, whether you're a police officer for a handful of years or multiple decades. I don't know if there would be a day without some kind of adversity. Um
I
would you
think every
say
day.
every single
Just
day?
like just like a civilian,
Mhm.
right? You have good days and you have bad days.
Sure.
So sometimes there's just more adversity in a day of a police officer than there is a civilian. Because you could probably go a couple of days, like, well, we'll use your teaching time,
Sure.
right? Was there any time in your teaching time where you thought, "Fuck, these kids are driving me crazy. Like I can't."
Yeah. You
Well,
know what?
you talked about like Julian and Mick had to be get on your nerves at some
You know
point.
what? They were very honestly, they were very respectful. Never it was very never disrespectful. Like they would never be like, Psh, and so they knew the line where I think they just had there was a baseline of respect. But there was definitely days when I had to send some kids to the office, or like a parent wasn't so nice, when you're just like, I don't know, maybe I'm like not good at this. And you start to like be
Right.
like, I don't know,
So yeah,
like, did I
same.
handle that right? But you can't
Right.
show weakness in front of the whole class because you're like, and it's already done. So,
Right. And
you
so
know,
same thing, but as a police officer, you're just it's magnified by like 100.
oh,
So
beyond.
if I did a shift and didn't respond to a dead body, um, then that was a good day. I mean, I responded to injuries all the time. It was irrelevant. Like, but if it wasn't a death, then it was a good day, right? Nobody got killed on my shift,
Wow.
and I survived. Then it was a good day, right? And those did happen. Like, there was a lot of times it would happen 2 or 3 days in a row, and you were like, "Yeah, this is good," but
Yeah.
you get cynical, and then you start thinking, "Fucking shit's gonna happen on the back end here on Friday and Saturday night," and so you just get cynical. But to your question, so I'm in patrol for 5 years.
Mhm.
Four, I think it was like maybe four. Uh, so I learned my beat, and I'm a big believer that you need about that many years in patrol before you start moving around, because you really got to get your teeth sunk into understanding people.
Mm.
And then I so growing up in Maryville, right? I had a lot of friends, some family members that were involved in gangs and drugs, and to me, uh, pre law enforcement, I didn't really particularly see an issue with people doing drugs and joining gangs. It's their own life,
Uh-huh.
right?
Okay.
And so to me, I was like, if that dude wants to do drugs, why the fuck bother him, you know?
Right.
Um, and
Sure. Live and let live, right? Just like
yeah,
stay out of it.
so I was like, whatever. But then I started, when I got into law enforcement, when I got into the jails and working detention, that's when I realized that, those type in that select group of people, they're just violent. Um, and I remember the first time that I was listening to phone calls, I was working in the jails in the intelligence unit, and we were listening to phone calls, and there were some gang members that were trying to orchestrate a drive-by and a hit, and the one guy inside the jail that was locked up had ordered the hit, and the guy on the outside was supposed to do the hit, and they were on the phone, and the guy calls the shooter and says, did you do the job? Or I don't remember what code they were using. And he's like, no, we couldn't do it, man, because the guy that they were trying to hit was outside with his wife and his small child. And he's like, hey, we passed on it because the wife and kid were out there. And the guy that was locked up said, I don't care. You get that motherfucker. Right. And at that moment, that's when I realized, like, all right, all bets are off at this point. Like, this dude didn't even realize that it was a problem that there was a wife and small child. And at the time, I think that the little boy was probably no more than 2 or 3 years old. And they wanted him to spray up the house and hit the target. So that's when I was like, nah. Like, this isn't just gang members fighting gang members. Like, they're crossing lines. And so when I was in patrol, growing up in Maryville, I had a lot of knowledge of gangs. I had grown up around them.
Okay.
Like I said, I had family members, friends that were gang members. I have friends that were doing life. So, I was like, I'm going to become a gang detective. I was going to try to go to the SWAT team, but I'm afraid of heights, and they do some weird shit from the helicopter and rappel off buildings and shit. So I knew where I stood. So again,
Gang is still pretty intimidating to me, but
but
wow.
But again, this goes back to, and I left a comment on one on one of your podcasts.
Yeah.
And I think you had said during Julian's podcast, or one of them, that you were saying, like, hey, you raised your kid good, but again, that's what I was saying about teachers, right? If you have a good teacher, Julian was fortunate enough to have so many good teachers, right? And so, although we would my wife, I can't take a lot of that credit because, like I said, I was working, but that's why it's important. That statement of "it takes a community to raise a child" really means something, totally. Right? Because once we send them to you, we're hoping that you're going to mold him similar to your core values, right? Sure. Learning, building the brain, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess, in unspoken rules, it's a team effort, right? You got mom, you got dad, you got teacher. Yep. All these people are playing a huge factor in my kid's life, right? And there was many times that I would ask or talk to him about school, and he'd be like, "Oh, Miss So-and-so was like this, or she said this." And I did not intervene. I never countered anything that his teachers taught him. Never. The only time that I ever probably countered was if I didn't understand that new fucking math or whatever it was.
Oh gosh, yes.
And then I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just memorize the fucking multiplication table like I did.
It's awful.
But other than that, everybody was on the same page.
Yeah.
So going back, when I was getting ready to apply to gang detective, now and your audience knows that, one, I was not a student. I did not like school. And then I get into law enforcement, where there's a bunch of tests and learning and shit like that. But this was something I wanted to learn. Mm-hmm. So I had an eagerness to learn.
Yeah.
So once I was at that point where it was time to test, I had to take a test. I had to study for the test. Policies, procedures. There was a lot of things, oral interviews. So again, I find myself starting over, right? Because I go from a civilian to a detention officer, from a detention officer to a police officer patrolman to a detective. So constantly evolving, constantly learning. So when I was just about ready to throw my hat in the ring to become a detective, that's when I started to realize I should have fucking paid attention in school. And on a side note, this is a true story. One day, my wife and I are I think we're at Fry's. Mm-hmm. And I look over and I see my high school English teacher. And I was so mean to her. Like, I showed up late to class. I ignored her. It was bad.
You're a punk.
And yeah, 100%. And I remember I walked over to her and I asked her, I said, "Aren't you Miss So-and-so?" And she's like, "I am." And I said, I was one of your students in high school. And obviously you have a shit ton of students.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And I was like, you probably don't remember who I was. And she didn't. And I said, but I need to tell you something. I said, I'm a police officer now. And I had just made detective. And I said, and I just made detective. And I said, I want to apologize. And she's like, for what? And I said, I should have listened and I should have shown you more respect. Because I got to tell you, not understanding school and being a police officer and writing the reports that I had to write,
Oh,
I
right.
should have paid more attention to vowels, all nouns, like
It's important.
all that shit, like commas, like all that shit I should have listened to, right? But I didn't. But I didn't know then, right? And I remember she laughed, I chuckled, I said, I didn't understand what a compound sent. Like I didn't understand any of that shit, but I do now, right? Because now I have to do this every day. The most
Oh,
amount of reports I ever had in a day as a patrol officer, I think I had 18 reports in one day that I had
whoa.
to write. And you
Those
want to
are,
talk about,
those are critical
yeah.
too.
And now I'm writing reports with, you know, uh, just everything, adjectives. I mean, one time my sergeant's like, do you even know what a fucking adjective is? I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're like, I'm just trying to write stuff, okay?
Yeah, like I should have listened, and I apologized, and I said I am so sorry. Granted, she didn't know who I was, but I felt that I at least owed her that, right? And I should have listened. So if your audience is listening and you want to be any kind of professional, listen to your fucking teachers, man. Like that's where it starts, right? So as I test for detective, um, I have to do all that. I get selected. I become a gang detective. And
Whoa.
now this is where um this is like being a detective is like next level,
Yeah.
right? You're writing nonstop, right? So I was there's two types of
Yeah. Tell me
detective.
if someone wants to kind of know, tell me about the fundamentals of a detective
So
versus.
there's two types. There's criminal investigators, detectives, right? So those are the guys that do like homicides,
Yep.
burglaries, robberies, domestic violence, um, fraud,
Mm-hmm.
all that. That's
Okay.
all criminal investigation. So like CID.
Okay.
And then there's special investigations, which is like narcotics, undercover work, vice, gangs, organized crime,
Got it.
completely different.
Be
Okay.
like Hell's Angels. I read a book on
Yeah.
that, like Hell's Angels,
Yeah.
and
Like Jay Dobbins and
oh, I
all those
love
guys
that book
like that.
so
Yeah.
much. Love it.
Um, so that's so I did not want to be a criminal investigator, right? Because to me, the criminal investigator was the nerds, the smart kids,
Yeah.
right? They were the smart kids because they knew how to write good reports. They were analytical,
Uh-huh.
right? So, and I was not any of that.
Sure.
Any of that. I wanted to get into the shit that like nobody wanted to get into, right? And so I have a lot of respect for those criminal investigators
Mhm.
because their brains function on a whole different level than mine,
Yeah.
right? Analytics,
Oof.
math. If you're a recon guy that does accident reconstruction, you're doing math. Like I
Wow.
want no part of that.
Angles of both, like
Yeah,
all the different scenario, right? Like it's
yeah. I want
fascinating.
no part of that. I just want you to tell me to go get the bad guy and I'll bring him back. Like,
Because we need those minds, right? You
oh
need
yeah,
those, which
yeah.
that to me is very difficult too. Like I can't do that. I
Yeah,
can't do that.
yeah. And so it's funny, everything has its place and you should put the
Sure.
right people in the right place. And
Agree. Yep. Yep.
being that I was not highly educated and I probably didn't know the difference between an adverb and a verb, I probably should not be investigating, fraud crimes. But that's so I knew where I wanted to go. I became a gang detective and now my only job is to find bad people. I'm no longer patrolling the community, like I said before, looking out for the average citizen. My job is to go find the bad people that do the bad things, right? So we're responding to drive-by shootings, we're responding to homicides, stabbings,
Ugh.
assaults, ag assaults. So at this point, everything is violence. Like, I don't just respond to, like, in patrol, you can respond to something from a lost kid to a
Yeah,
murder,
got
right?
it. Right.
As a detective, you're very specialized in what you respond to. Homicide detectives only deal with homicides and death. Robbery, that's all they're dealing with. Burglaries, that's all they're dealing with. So it's like a doctor, right? You got a primary,
You're all heart surgeries.
right?
You're all
Or
lung.
you've got,
Yeah,
you got a brain surgeon.
got it.
So the same. So now I'm dealing with violent offenders, repeat offenders, sex offenders, gang members. 99% of the stuff that we did was all gang related. If it was a gang shooting, if it was a gang murder, we worked with homicide. And so that's really about the time that my job became everything. So that's when I was like, I'm going to work. So I got even further back, right? And I think, let me see, what grade did Julian, how old was Julian when you met him?
He was 12. It was 2005, 2006. So he was like 12.
Okay. So we'll catch up there. So so
Yeah,
I
what were you
became a
doing when I
gang,
was teaching Julian?
yeah. So I became a gang detective in like 2003, late 2003, somewhere around there.
Okay.
No, it might have been sooner. But anyways, you'll see why in a minute.
Yep.
So let me give you an example of like adversity and how you just kind of forget about it after a while. So I became a gang detective in, I'll say, like 2000, end of 2002, 2003. Did that, and then I decided that I was going to start. Well, I didn't decide, but I got asked to join um, a newly formed organized crime bureau. And I had the ability to work with somebody who I admired completely. I mean, this guy was a phenomenal detective, phenomenal cop. And I had the opportunity to go work with him.
Mm-hmm.
And you were asking about, like, I think you asked about mental health
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
So to give you an example of how much I had changed in that time period, right? So so going back real quick, I got
Yeah.
selected for that unit, and then I went in. It was a select few of us. It was like 6 of us, 7 of us. I think maybe 6 or 8 of us, and we were gonna work undercover and work certain types of criminals. And so Julian was born in 93. So
Mm-hmm.
I was not a police officer. And this is
Yeah.
going to touch on your mental health.
Yep.
I wasn't a police officer. I still had the right emotion for the right response, right? I was still somewhat, I was normal, right? So Julian is born in 93, and the day he's born, this is going to show you the difference in mental health. The day he's born, he's born. I hold him. They hand him to me, and I'm holding him. Then I give him to my wife, who's with her mom in the delivery room, and I go outside and I cry with my dad, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the normal response for the normal situation, right?
Okay.
Happiness.
Sure.
Well, now fast forward almost 10 years. Now I've been in law enforcement since 2000, like 99, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gang detective. I've already been through the academy. I've already been through FTO. I've already been a patrol officer. Now I'm a detective. And in 2004, my youngest is born. So there's about a 10-year difference between
Okay.
Julian and my
Yep.
youngest, Adriel.
Yep.
And when Adriel's born, I'm working as an undercover detective in this organized crime bureau. So when Adriel's born, and this is going to lead into your mental health and how it affects us in adversity. When Adriel's born, he's born preemie, so he's already right.
Yeah.
Preemie,
Yep.
they're
Yep.
going to
He's
have to
born
go to the
early. Yep.
NICU,
Yep. Yep.
right? All this stuff's happening. He's in the middle of him being born. I'm negotiating a drug deal instead of focusing on my child's birth, right? So my youngest is born. He's born, he's in the NICU, and I'm negotiating a drug deal with drug dealers. Like, I didn't have the same response. Do you see the difference?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
so you can see where just in the course of that time, our mental health I don't know if it's mental health, but we've kind of become jagged or jaded or hardened, if you will.
Yes.
And that job, so you said you were with Julian in 2000,
2005, 2006. Like
right?
fall
So
2005 to like summer 2006. Yeah.
right. So that would make sense because part of the reason I don't remember you is if I was doing a drug deal when my son was born in that time frame, I was already on that organized crime unit, and I would have never gone to anything you did with him.
You wouldn't
Or
have gone to the school.
no,
Yeah,
no,
like, it just wouldn't have, yeah.
no. At that point, there wouldn't have been, like, if it would have. I was working so much that if there would have been a parent teacher conference, or there would have been something where I would have met you, I would have been working anyways. Because at that point, I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I had Wednesday, Thursday. No, 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 no. Let me hold on. I'm trying to remember my schedule. So we worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We had Thursday, Friday. No, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. So if it didn't fall in that time period, I wouldn't have gone. But it's funny because Julian showed, or I think you posted a picture where he's in the classroom, and I remember him getting ready for that day.
Like the flashback Friday?
Yeah, 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 where he had his braided hair and shit. Yeah. That I may have had to have something to do with that one, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't go. I didn't get so before I was a police officer, I can tell you Julian's teachers' names, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
after, like, there's only one teacher I remember, and it's sad, but
Okay.
I before, as we move forward, before, I have to thank you
Oh,
because he's one of the teachers that he never didn't stop talking about. Like, he was excited to talk to you.
oh.
Like, that's why it's important, going back to the impact. You impacted him just as much as his parents did. Those teachers, when you talk about adversity, he still had, he's not good at math, right? There's a lot of things that I would have, our parent, his parents wouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
So, but going back to that, I was not there. Like, between that time frame, I was pretty much
But you know
not
what you
there.
were doing? You were protecting the surrounding area and trying to diminish and get rid of gang violence, right? So that our school, I mean, your calling was in service of, protecting the community that we lived in so that I could safely teach.
Well,
You know what I
yeah, I
mean?
mean, yeah, I guess you could put that argument there, but
Oh, for sure.
yeah, but
But you
again, I
missed
don't.
out on those
Yeah,
times.
like,
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
did not get, and they did not get, right. Like,
Your kids, yeah.
Julian and Adriel, they did not get their dad there. So, and not that,
Right.
so I can't
Fair.
say that I'm complaining, but
It's
you know,
valid.
that's one of the things that, like, I try to, when people ask me, I'm like, if a police officer shows up to your house in an emergency, you have to remember his family doesn't have him there or her there,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
during that time, I had zero adversity. I loved my job almost to a fault.
Now you got to tell me, you're an undercover. Okay, so so tell me what that means. As much as you can share. You were undercover in the gang unit.
Yeah, well, originally I was a gang detective, so I wasn't undercover.
You weren't. Okay.
We were all black, and we went out and we dealt with gang members. And then I got selected to go to the organized crime unit that they were starting,
Mhm.
and I was with the officer that I admired tremendously to
Oh,
this
right,
day.
right.
I mean, that officer is still to this day, like, I know he wouldn't like me to say it, so I won't say it, but I admire him tremendously. Um,
Yep.
but so I get selected. Um, I go undercover, and we start dealing with drug dealers. I changed my identity, which was a whole nother realm of itself.
Wow.
That's something that maybe Julian could answer. I mean,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I didn't look like myself at all. Like, I put on a lot of weight. I'm fat now, but I think the camera adds like 30 pounds.
I was not aware you went undercover. This is like wow.
But yeah, and then I had to, I told my wife, I'm like, look, if we're out somewhere and I tell you to leave, you got to leave. Like, it's, I tend to say sometimes, and I have in the past, like, my family, and I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just kind of put it into
Cool.
perspective. Like,
Keep it
my
real.
family, like, they serve a sentence for no crime, right? Because a lot of the stuff they had to put up with was because of my job.
Mhm.
Um, so having them, not only was I not present, but they still had to stop what they were doing at some point, right? Because I'm like, hey, we can't go here, right? Because I couldn't. It's not like I could change my identity and be back on Monday and be back in the same identity.
Yeah.
I remember one time, um, my wife will get a kick out of this one, but my wife was running to Target, and
Yeah.
I said, oh, I'll go with you, and she's like, no, 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 and I'm like, what? Why not? And she's like, well, every time you go, fucking, they fucking follow us through the lot. Security watches us. And so I will say this, and it's twofold. Um, so I and this is something that has to do with adversity as well, I guess. Maybe you can connect it or draw the line. But
Yeah.
so when I went undercover, I looked like a gang member, like 100% looked like a gang member.
Yeah.
And there's something. So what I'll tell your viewers, which is, it has to do with adversity, but from a different side. When I went undercover, I realized just how much people will judge someone based on their appearance, based on their tattoos.
Mhm.
And I never, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I grew up on a bad side of town, so I never saw that part of it. But
Sure.
when I went undercover, and I can't stress this enough, for the people in law enforcement, you 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 sacrifice your family time to go protect the greater good, which is society. But at the same time, don't forget, even the criminals that you put in jail are still human beings, and they need to be treated like human beings,
Right.
right? You
Yeah.
need to respect them. If they show you respect and they're not, you need to respect them, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Yeah.
So when I first went undercover, I looked like a gang member, 100%. And I went into a super to a like a quick mart or whatever,
Uh-huh.
quick trip, and nobody would stand next to me. Like, I was looking for a drink, and like everyone avoided me. Like, everyone avoided me. And I was looking for something, and I hear this voice, and I was like, he's like, "Hey, are you looking for something?" And I look over, and it's this guy, and he's got tattoos on his face and all over his neck. And I'm like, "I'm just looking for this." And he's like, "Oh, it's right here, man." And he was the only person that would help me, right? And I thought that was kind of fucked up. Like, and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, "Man, do I do that shit?"
Do I judge?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Nah, that shit's not cool, man." Like, that dude was just minding his own business, and he took the time to help me out. No one else would
Mhm.
help me. No one else would help me, right? And so when I talk about adversity, it's not just a one-way street, right? It's not just for police or civilians. Like, I still firmly believe that, you wait and you judge the person. And
Yes. Yes.
one of the other things that I learned, and this will stay with me for as long as I live. And I struggled with it for a very long time because I don't know if there's really a good answer. But I was doing an undercover deal one day, and we were standing outside. It was about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I was standing outside of a Target.
Mhm.
And you remember the old red box, the
Yeah.
red box
Yes.
DVDs?
With the movies.
Yeah. So I was posted up, or I was standing
Mhm.
um, by that machine, and a car pulls up. It wasn't who we were looking for, but I was waiting for the deal to go down. And a car pulls up, and as the car pulls up, it's a I'm assuming husband and wife, but it was a couple.
Mhm.
And the couple pulls in, and so they pull into the parking spot. They're facing the red box, and I'm standing next to the red box. So they're facing me.
Okay.
They pull in, and as they pull in, the husband jumps out, and he runs into the target, right? And he runs into the target. And I'm not even paying attention to that car. Okay. So I've got uh, a hearing device on so I can hear the other detectives,
But they
and
don't
they're
obviously
telling me,
they don't know
right.
you're yeah, okay.
So they're so there's probably at least 10 detectives, police detectives in that parking lot, undercover. Okay. And we're setting up this deal, and that car pulls up, the husband gets out, runs into the target, and that leaving the wife inside in the
Okay.
car.
Okay.
And I'm not paying attention to her. And as I'm standing there, I hear this noise. It's like a hard slap, like a pop. And I was like, "What the fuck? What was that?"
Mhm.
Right? Well, now I get it. So don't judge me. I don't have your people judge me. But what she did was she locked the door on her car,
'Cause
right?
she saw you.
Because she saw me.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, fuck. Like, like she's the safest woman in the world right now with 10 detectives around her in the park. She has no
But
idea.
she doesn't know.
But she doesn't know. But she had judged me, right? She had judged me by my appearance,
Uh-huh.
okay? By my clothing.
Mhm.
At the time, I did not have my tattoos right here.
Okay. Okay.
So I was just solely
Just
based on
just straight up
clothing.
clothes. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I wasn't, not that it would matter, but I
Yeah.
just had regular clothes on, just dicky pants or dicky shorts or something
Uh,
with a shirt.
okay.
Right. And I was like, man, that's kind of fucked up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I understand safety, right?
but there's no indication that that would be yeah, like, it didn't seem like
Yeah. And
it
I'm
would.
just like, so then I started to realize, like, hey, yo, like, what about these people that are trying to rehabilitate themselves later on in life? Like,
And they're
what
being
adversity? I
judged.
didn't think it at the time adversity, but I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, that's what they're dealing with, right?
And what if he's waiting for his daughter to come out and get a stuffed animal, and, like,
Right.
you're judged
Yeah, you're
'cause
just
you yeah.
automatically. I was on clothing alone. Uh, I apparently drew some fear in her, and she had locked the door on. And I get it. I mean, I would tell my wife to do the same thing, but that was
It
really the
stuck
first
with you.
time. Well, I started
Yeah.
thinking like that was the first time that I was like, man, like this dude, how many guys did I pass in my lifetime? Or and I think to myself, like, just because he's dressed that way, he's gonna, that's fucked up.
And you could say the opposite too, where just because a guy's in a suit and a nice car doesn't mean he's a good person, or a
Right.
woman
Yeah. Yeah.
doesn't,
Look at
someone that
Richard Ramirez. He was a good looking guy. He's a serial killer.
right, right. So like, um, with that, how did you with what happened with that particular drug deal? Like most of the times, were you able to complete the mission? And how did you not? I read the Jay Dobbins book,
Yeah.
like Infiltrating Hell's Angels,
Yeah.
and you have to take on that identity, right?
Yeah.
That's challenging
Yeah.
in itself. And then how did you get yourself calm or in that state? And did you have any training or was it just figuring it out?
No, I mean we had training. I mean we definitely had. When you're a detective, you go through a advanced detective school or advanced undercover school.
But like
Um,
to assume the identity of a gang member, you probably relied on your knowledge too, right? Of like,
yeah, I mean I grew up around it, so it was a lot easier for me.
yeah,
But I you just it sounds weird, but when so even before I was undercover,
uh-huh,
when I left, remember when I became a police officer, your identity gets kind of stripped from you in a way,
you're right.
because I went from being at home, I was dad, to going to work and I was officer. Nobody called me by my first name. Nobody called me dad. They called me officer or sir, right? So that's already built up. And I know it's a respect thing and I get it, right? I call doctors because they earned a degree,
Sure.
right? Teacher.
Yep.
If you're a professor, right? I get
Right.
it. But I'm sure it's no different for me than it would be for you. If, when I go to parent teacher conference, I'm respecting you because you earned that position.
Mm-hmm.
I call you by your last name
That's what you,
as a sign of respect,
yeah,
right? Because you earn that.
sure.
And as a police officer, that's what would happen. I would leave the house and I would leave dad at the house and I would become the officer. So the same
Yes.
was true when you worked
Yes.
undercover, right?
Right.
I would leave the house, and when I would leave the house, I don't want to say forgot, but that was there. I turned it off. Yeah.
You make the switch.
Yeah. And that's another thing we can touch on when we get to that point,
Sure.
where what fucks you up in the long run and how our organization started and why it started.
Yeah. So you're in the gang unit. Now, I grew up in Southern California. I was born in 81. And so I do remember we would go to Raider games when I was in middle school because we knew someone in the ticket office. And so we'd go to LA. And I do remember driving through some pretty rough neighborhoods. And I remember just being like, holy shit. And
What part of Southern LA, first of all? That's what I want to know.
well, I was from Irvine, but we
Okay.
went to LA Raider games back in the day. And I remember I was like in the suburbs. And so I remember being in seventh grade and being like, damn, like, we're not in Kansas anymore. And I remember
Right.
my dad saying, hey, Bree, look around. You want to
Yeah.
complain? Like being like, look around next time you want to complain. And,
Yeah.
being like, what the fuck?
Right.
And now I remember like the Crips and the Bloods, just hearing about that in the 90s and like that
Yeah.
gang stuff. In Arizona, is in every state, are there different gangs or there sort of connections to how does that work?
There's some connections, but
It's
I mean,
individual
my
state.
specialty when I focused, my focus was California gang members. I
Okay.
did local gang members, but I also did prison gang members too. And
Oh.
so I did a lot of, like you say, Irvine. Like I almost kind of. It's not that Irvine doesn't have gang members,
Oh
but
no,
I
it was
just kind
very
of chuckle.
safe.
Yeah, and
No,
like
I'm
it's
saying like when I would drive through, it was such a contrast to what I grew up in.
right.
But like
And
They
that's kind of, so going back to like, and here's another, I don't know if this would be adversity, but you know, going back to what I just told you about with, judging somebody,
Mhm.
right? I grew up in Maryville. We didn't have the most amount of shit. We weren't rich. We weren't poverty stricken, but we definitely weren't well off.
Mhm.
Um, but in more recent times, my youngest, Maryvale's not the nicest area,
Mhm.
right? At all down here. Um, but my youngest, he has some friends that live in Maryvale.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I told him in more recent times, I said, listen, I'm never going to tell you not to go to Maryvale, ever, ever, because his friends live there,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I told him, if your friends are having a party in Maryvale, go to Maryvale,
Mhm.
right? Because you never turn your back on somebody just because of where they live,
Totally.
or right, because I've seen
Circumstance.
that
Yeah.
side of it, right? When I grew up in Maryvale, but I also saw the side of it when I was just telling you about,
The
right? When I
judgment.
was
Mhm.
undercover.
Mhm.
So I would highly suggest, like, even to some of the people that watch, like, hey, take a minute when you're walking down the street. That person that has tattoos on their face or on their neck does not make them a bad person,
Mhm.
right? And just because they made bad decisions in their life does not define them. Just like my job didn't define me,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's good that your dad did that. Like, hey, look,
Oh,
but
yeah.
but at the same time, it you tell people, like, hey, it's like I told my youngest, hey, it's okay for you to go over to Maryvale. That's where your friends are from.
Yeah.
But just be
Great
cognizant that
point.
there's danger out there, right? But
Right.
there's danger on the nice part of town, right?
Exactly.
So it doesn't
Exactly.
matter, but don't make it about, a bad or good thing. Like, you can still understand people and not have adversity with them, right? You don't
Yeah.
have to have conflict with them because they're from a different class or tax bracket,
Sure.
So
There is definitely good and bad people in every community. And
oh
like you
yeah.
said, like sometimes I feel like in some of the affluent communities too, it's like dark stuff going on, you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and you know way
Some of
more
my
about it.
best drug deals happened in some higher end communities.
Right, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but yeah, that was, at that point, I had, there was no, my job was my job, and
Mhm.
I didn't really have a home life.
Yeah.
Um, when I was home, I was probably either worried about my next deal, or, I missed a lot of things.
Yeah.
Fortunately, my wife we've been together 32 years. So she kept me grounded. It probably wasn't the easiest.
Mhm.
But you definitely, in any career, you need to have work-life balance, right? And Julian knows that.
Yep.
My youngest knows that. I said, look, my youngest is going to school. He wants to be a nurse, maybe a doctor or whatever, a
Yep.
PA.
Uh-huh.
But I told him, look, you can have your career, but let your career pay for your fun stuff, like photography. Like Julian, he does his music, but he also DJs, right? That's
Yeah.
his fun stuff,
Yeah.
right? Then he's got jobs like this where he helps people out, which I think is fucking amazing.
Oh,
Um, so it definitely is, in any capacity, you have to take time for yourself, right? And above all, remember what you want to do as a kid and do it as an adult.
mm,
Like, that's like the biggest thing that I could tell people.
100%. That is the inner child, man. I mean, people want to call it hokey, whatever, but I'm telling you, like the inner child within all of us, that's where you find the true joy that I think cultivating that joy, whatever it is, you need
Yeah.
balance for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you're into your years working in the gang unit, but then special sort of you're really getting into your career as a detective.
Yeah.
Um, take me through the next phase. Because I know what it comes to is obviously your organization.
Yeah.
Um, so what else are you encountering before retirement here as far as phases?
So so bringing you full circle up to this part. So so
Take
it rained down. It rained down here, and I got allergies.
take your time.
So coming out of that, uh, not realizing what the career had done to me, right, over the years and bad shit. Uh, I end up getting diagnosed in 2012 with PTSD, and obviously, when I got diagnosed, it was severe PTSD, and I didn't think anything was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, "Nah, I'm good."
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, there was some significant issues there, and not. It's a whole nother podcast to tell you my
Sure.
PTSD journey. But
Sure.
so the long and short of it is, uh, during my career, we see a lot of traumatic events. But what ended up breaking me was a drowning of a small child, and Caden was very young. He was about 4 or 5, and uh, it was just it. In just like in any city or state, but Arizona more importantly because it's so hot here, everybody's got a fucking pool, and it was a drowning, and I was with mom, and I would say probably one of the worst things to do as a police officer is to deliver a death notification. Uh, if you had to compound a death notification by 1,000, deliver that to a mother of her only son. And so that was the call that my partner and I were on. And I had to be with mom for a significant amount of time. So, for the sake of time, without going too far into it, uh, I ended up getting diagnosed. I still hear mom scream in my head, so the screams put me down. Uh, and so when I reached out, uh, there wasn't really much going on at that time. Like for PTSD and law enforcement, there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a whole lot of help, and even more so during that time frame, it wasn't something that was well known about. So
Yeah.
to me, I was like, man, I'm not a vet, right? I'm not in the military. I don't have that shit. And it's not that I don't believe it. I just think I just didn't think that I did enough to get it. And so uh, in I got diagnosed um, in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
2012, 2013, and that's where the wheels fell off, so to speak. Um, I was an alcoholic for a long time. When you hear a mother screams, um, I tell people, I'm like, you think you know what that sounds like until you hear it, right? But I also tell people, like with homicides or death, I tell people, somebody asked me not too long ago about homicides,
Mm-hmm.
and I told them, I said, if let me ask you, if you understand what death is, tell me what it tastes like. And they were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, if you don't know what it tastes like, you have no idea, right? Going on a dead body or a homicide, there's a taste to it. It's not just a smell, there's a taste. um and so, like, I explain to people, and we do speaking engagements with Pistol, and
Mm-hmm.
I explain we do spouses speaking engagements, and I explain to them, I'm like, if you're a mom, uh, there's no sound like that, and so to hear that 24 hours a day, every day, over and over and over and over, you know, it'll drive you mad. There comes a point where you think to yourself, I'm going to drink this out of me. Maybe if I just fucking blow my head off right now, it'll stop. Um, it wasn't that we could do anything for the baby, right? Those things happen, right?
Mhm.
Drownings and stuff like that. But having that scream just over and over and over and over again. So when I got diagnosed, I was struggling with that, and I'm like, nah, it's not me. I didn't go to war. I didn't felt that I had done enough, because I would compare myself to these soldiers, right? Um, and so I had to go through years of therapy, medication.
Mhm.
I was battling alcoholism for a long time. I would tell my wife, I'm not an alcoholic, because alcoholics deny it, right? And I didn't. I'm like, I'm gonna drink as much as I humanly can, just to try to get sleep. Uh, so I ended up getting diagnosed. I got assigned to a psychologist. Dr. Robbie Adler Tapia was my psychologist, phenomenal psychologist. Um, she got me through that time period. During that time period, she introduced me to my co-founder, Dave. Um, and we created, the three of us, four of us, there was actually four of us.
Mhm.
At that time, we created uh, P.I.S.T.L.E, which is post-incident stress and trauma in law enforcement. I get in trouble for that shit all the time because I forget it.
It's okay.
Uh, but so at the time, there wasn't anything for us. And, when I was saying to you early in the podcast about my family having, doing a sentence for no crime committed, my family took a big, big, big portion of that hit, being an alcoholic, um, having the trauma that you have. There was nowhere for us to go,
Mhm.
right? And you
Mhm.
retire,
Mhm.
and no one pays attention, right? Like, you retire and there's no support system, there's
Mhm.
no nothing. So we started Pistol
Mhm.
with the intention of helping police officers who struggle with PTSD. Now, whether they're on the job or they're retired is irrelevant to us.
Yep.
Um, and so what we do is, it started with just police. So the goal initially was just supposed to be police.
Mhm.
That was it.
Mhm.
That's why it's Pistol, right? In
Yep.
law enforcement. Uh, but then we found that firefighters were affected by this shit, right? Um, and we started Redline. That took care of the firefighter
Mhm.
part of it.
Mhm.
Um, and then working through my own trauma, dealing with all of that, I had to go through therapies, EMDR.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and at the time, so as you can see, what started as just a normal sense of coping through adversity,
Yep.
starting in a police academy or detention academy, there was nothing to prepare me for what was ahead of me, right? But there's really no way, at least in my career, there is no way to, somebody has to respond to those calls,
Right.
right? There's no, just like somebody has to teach my kid, right? I don't want to be in a classroom with a bunch of kids that piss me off and I get in trouble for talking shit, but somebody has to do that, right? And for police and fire and corrections and dispatch and 911, like, somebody has to take those calls.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so for us, like, there was no preparation. Like I said, we only got 2 hours. That's all we got. You think I remembered fucking 2 hours out of 18 weeks or 16 weeks of an academy? Like, that was the least of my worries, right? So we started it, and I remember one day I was talking to my co-founder at Dr. Tapia's office, and I said, "Look, it's going to go one of two ways if we start this, right? Nothing's going to become of it, because we're the only two crazy motherfuckers in the world, or it's going to blow up. And so here we are 10 years later, and we still are in existence. We are, like, I would probably argue with you, like with your marketing, we are horrible at raising money. Like, we fucking are horrible at it. Okay.
You've done enough. I feel like
Well, I
someone
mean,
else should
we just
do it.
look, as police officers, we don't ask for help. So
Oh,
it's very difficult for us to
yes.
ask somebody to send us money, right? We're like, how do
Yeah.
we ask these people to send us money? So, so we start the organization after it was a few years. We we're not affiliated with Dr. Tapia at all anymore, and Dave and I have just continued to run P.I.S.T.L.E, and we have a core group of doctors and clinicians. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see the latest one. And surprisingly enough, not that I don't want hate sent my way, but all of our clinicians are women, and they are, I call them the special operations units of doctors and clinicians, top tier one women who help police officers and firefighters all day, every day.
Amazing.
And they are some of the strongest, most intelligent women I've ever met in my life. But with the organization, what we do is 99% of the money that you donate to P.I.S.T.L.E goes right back to the officers. So we do equine therapy, we treat trauma, we pay for their doctor's appointments, we pay for equine therapy. We just recently purchased some alpha stems to help PTSD. We put together trainings. We do speaking engagements. If we do a speaking engagement in Arizona, it doesn't cost you anything.
Amazing.
Because we're local. But if we, like, let's say we were going to go to California, we don't take any payment. You just got to get us there. Obviously, you got to get us there, get us a room, right? Because we're not going to sleep on the streets. And then if this is a big if you wanted to, you could make a donation. It doesn't matter if it's $1 or $100. You make a donation to P.I.S.T.L.E. And so that's how we raise money. And then from that point, what ended up happening was in 2021, my youngest son comes to me and tells me, I never remember you guys just heard my whole story.
Yeah.
I all I did was cop. That's all I did. And my youngest comes to me and he's like, Dad, you should play this video game. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to play this video game. And he tells me I'm going to play this game, which is still stupid to me. It's called Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I think it's the stupidest fucking game ever around. Nobody should play that game. But I hate it. I hate that game. It gives me anxiety and I get pissed off. And
I don't, yeah.
I cuss at 12-year-olds and it's just not a good section.
It's not a good situation.
But so I play. My wife tells him, look, Dad shouldn't be playing that game. Find another game. So I end up finding a game. And when I play this game and I start to realize that there's something to be said here, right? So I play this game.
Okay.
Then Julian gets involved. Now both my boys are involved. They find some games for me to play.
Oh.
And Father's Day of 2022, I believe it was 2022, they show up and I got a gaming computer, right? Now keep in mind, right? I'm just fucking dumbfounded by this shit. And so I get a gaming PC. I'm starting to play these games. Now, mind you, I'm fighting alcoholism.
Okay.
I'm on medication. I'm trying to sleep right. But I start playing these games. They're showing me how to play these games. I find out that there's this community, right? In this community of gamers, of police officers and firefighters and veterans.
Oh.
And I'm like, holy shit, what is this? So fast forward to 2023, and we end up creating this I don't, there's streamers that play video
Yep.
games, and apparently you get paid
Yeah.
to play video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to me.
My
That goes
kid,
back to our first
my
part of the
10-year-old are like,
conversation.
"Ah!"
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
you're gonna pay me to play this fucking video game.
Sure.
So they do a fundraiser for us, and in that fundraiser, we raised the most amount of money that Pistols ever raised. It was like $31,000
Holy shit, that's
to play
amazing.
video games. And so uh, it's very emotional for me because it's my boys that got me started in that, right? So, now, I mean, and those dummies play Call of Duty. I don't know how the fuck they play Call of Duty, but it's just too much. But so we do that. We have a fundraiser coming up in Arizona on November 1st. In Gilbert, it's called Trottoberfest. We
Okay.
have a couple of local celebrities. One of them used to be with the Village People.
Cool.
Wonderful, wonderful guy. Chad Freeman, Heather Freeman, his wife, Virginia McCarthy from Equine Connections.
Uh-huh.
They do a bar crawl for 3 bars, and then they raise money for Pistol. They do it every year. And so we've been able to help enough officers. We've helped officers from Canada, Melbourne, Australia, all the way from LAPD to NYPD. If you go to we have a Rumble page, but
Yep, I'm gonna put it
just a
all in
few,
there.
yeah, just a
Mhm.
few months ago, we provided Pistol paid for a service dog for a retired NYPD officer who struggles with PTSD. Um, what I'll do is I'll tell Julian to send you a picture
Okay.
and add it towards the end of this podcast. We'll put it like right, I don't know, like right here.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so I did have a service dog. She was a golden retriever.
Oh,
Her name was Six. She passed away, but I'll have Julian put a picture of her, like,
we'll give her some love
yeah,
here.
like right here.
I can't
You
say
put it
enough
right
about
here.
dogs heal,
Yeah.
man.
So if you go to Rumble, you'll hear me talk about Six, and we did a podcast about it. But of all this, and we talked, right? I said it's going to be probably more like an hour, 30 minutes. We're like
Hey,
2 hours.
this is amazing. This is
Um,
all
but
fantastic. I have a really good editor.
yeah, and but ultimately, the biggest thing that I can say, like, everybody here's heard what I've gone through. I don't think I'm any different, or a police officer's any different than any civilian that has had just as much adversity or more than I've been through, right? It's survivable.
Mhm.
It's going to take a lot of work, and it has, right? But it's taken more than me to get through that, right? For a long time, I struggled with what I put my family through,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And there's not enough sorries in the world to correct those actions.
Sure.
So
Sure.
really, to get through the adversity and understanding what your podcast is about, is you just don't give up, right? You never give up. You work through the problem. You'll figure it out. You don't quit, right?
Mhm.
And so having that time and meeting people like you and other people that have helped spread the word about Pistol and what we do. Remember, it goes back to what I was telling you about, like Julian. It wasn't just my wife and I, or just my wife, because I was working. He had teachers behind him, right? So when we handed the football off, so to speak,
Exactly.
you took charge of that and you guarded it. You took place. You made sure he was taken care of. So you have just as much stake in what he's accomplished as we do, in my opinion.
Mm.
Right now, my wife might say it's more of a lower percentage than
I
her,
think
but but in all reality, these teachers, right, that he's had, they're part of the reason he is the man he is today, right? So I have to thank you and pay respect to you for that, because he those teachers, for your viewers or your listeners, you know, these individuals who step into your life, just like I stepped into people's lives
yes.
when I was responding to their calls, they made a difference.
Mm,
And that's something that I've seen in this time frame that people forgot about, right? Your views, my views are irrelevant if we're trying to help each other.
yes.
Okay. And part of the reason that Julian is where he's at is his teachers, right? He had teachers who kept him in check. My
Mm,
job and my wife's job was to make sure that he treated you with respect, that he followed the rules.
yep.
Your job was to make sure that he knew how to learn correctly,
Hmm.
or you taught him a different way to learn
Sure.
and
Yeah.
persevere through that,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
once he's out of our hands and he's in your hands, he's
He's
going to have,
they're in your care for that
right,
moment.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
you take care of my child,
It's
right?
actually, yeah, your
And
physical, mental, psychological safety for that
well, yeah,
period.
I
Yeah.
don't have the tolerance to teach him what a fucking vowel is. You know what I mean? I don't want to teach him that,
Yeah.
right? I just make sure he's respectful. My wife makes sure that he's presentable, everything is
Yeah.
fine.
He was always
Your
presentable.
job is to make sure that he understands how to read, how to
Yeah.
write,
Yeah.
how to articulate, enunciate, hooked on phonics, all the normal
Yep.
shit that
Yeah.
my teachers taught me. But that's the stuff that I think your viewers should understand, is that just as important as you look at me
Mhm.
is the value that I looked at you, right? Because
Mm.
while I'm doing something out on the streets and I'm looking for, I'm protecting society,
Yeah.
you're taking care of my son, right? And that means just as much to me
Mm.
as it does to your husband, who's I'm guarding you, right? So
Yeah.
it's all the same thing.
Amazing.
But
It's
with Pistol,
amazing.
that is something that we we definitely look at, right? If you wanted, we tell people, when you go to Rumble and you watch us on Rumble, you're not digging in your pockets having to giving us $1. Just watching the video gives us money because of the ads,
Right.
right? It doesn't cost you anything.
Mhm.
But if you feel inclined to reach in and send us $5, we'll take it,
Amazing.
right? We
Yeah.
have Meta PCs, huge PC company here,
Uh-huh.
has helped us out. F3 Energy, okay, Self Rest Coffee. These
Mhm.
people have all stepped in on their own accord to help us. Not to mention Heather Freeman, Chad Freeman, Virginia McCarthy, all these people. We have donors that have donated for us minimal amounts for the last 10 years that have helped more officers than they'll ever imagine,
It's
right?
fantastic.
And
Mhm.
it doesn't take much, right?
Mm-mm.
Even you having me on your podcast makes a huge difference,
Oh,
right?
glad.
So like I said, I cannot thank you enough, not only for making sure Julian's not stupid, because if I taught him, he'd be fucking stupid, but for having me on. I enjoyed it tremendously.
I'm so glad. You are, well, thank you for your honesty, your authenticity, your for revisiting difficult times. I mean, difficult's an understatement. I don't want to understate what police officers and first responders have to deal with. And so I wanted to, just as I thanked retired Sergeant Alfred Brenner, and he also was saying how, there's always people worse off than him, and I want to thank you for your service, to our nation, to our communities, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed this, because it's important to me that, my guests, when you're reliving adversity and like kind of going through some of those darker times, I know it's not easy, and so I appreciate you taking the time to come on just share who you are and your experience. And I know that people listening, whether they're struggling with depression, anxiety, alcoholism, whether they're in, civilians or first responders, I know that people out there are going to resonate with this. Um, and I don't take it lightly that your kind words and your ability to keep it real, which is what we need,
Yeah, I'm
especially
about
as
as
a
real as they
man.
come. Yeah, I'm about as real as you can get.
I can tell.
Usually they call me an asshole for being real, but
I feel like fake is more of an asshole to me. Like, I'd rather just know who you are right away.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it definitely can get. Like I said, the same respect for you. Like I said, teachers. I used to get in trouble because I would tell my buddies like, "Why do you watch fucking athletes?" Right? And I
yeah,
was an athlete growing up, but these athletes and these CEOs and they had to learn from someone.
sure.
That's a teacher,
Yeah,
right? It's not a police officer that taught them that shit, right? It's a teacher. Part of the reason that uh, that Julian or these kids can do what they do is they have to go. It doesn't matter whether it's a YouTube teacher,
yeah.
whether it's a real, not a real teacher. I don't want to
No, but
discredit
any
anybody
kind of
else, but
teacher.
right.
Yeah,
But I have to learn from somewhere, right? You're either going to learn from someone bad and do bad shit, or you're going to learn from someone good and do good shit, right? And so ultimately, if anyone, and I've said this for years, there's no way you're going to convince me that someone who plays basketball or baseball deserves $100 million contract
yeah,
and teachers don't deserve at least mid six figures, right? Because in order for them to be able to manage their money, to know that they have six figures, they need a
yeah.
fucking math teacher. You see what I'm saying?
It's
And
all
it's
connected.
funny. It's
Yeah,
funny because me and Julian are terrible at math. We're fucking horrible at math. But you know what's funny? Julian has figured out math being a business person.
he
He
is
knows
very
exactly
savvy.
what he needs to do.
He's savvy.
And again, these are all
It's
teachers,
lessons.
mentors. These people matter.
Well, Manny, I wanted to thank you and officially wrap up this very, very authentic and super helpful couple hours with you that I am grateful to have. And again, please look in the show notes. We got Pistol, Manny's organization, where you can reach him. And if you're a police officer or anyone struggling, I know that Pistol can be of help to you. So I'm going to wrap this up and we will talk to you soon.